All right. Letting everyone in.
Look at all that.
Look at all these people. How
Yeah.
fun.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey guys.
Doug. I might need your help a little bit with admitting. Do you have that option?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's because I haven't made you a co-host. There you go.
Yeah. I can be clicking on it.
All right. Well, we'll sort of slowly get started here as people are rolling in. So nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. This was our added workshop, and we thought, why not, add one to the end of the semester for us, the spring, I don't know, even early summer for folks. So nice to see everybody. We're happy to have you all here. My name is Joanna Woronkowicz,
I'm Doug Noonan.
and we are the co-directors, co-founders, along with Michael Rushton of the Center for Cultural Affairs. And this is technically our workshop in cultural affairs series, but we're going to do something a little bit different today. So usually what we do here is we have people come in that we invite, present some papers, and we discuss them as a group. But today, Doug and I are really, really proud to be launching a new project that we've been working on for quite a while, called Arts Analytics. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but I'm going to note before I share my screen that this is super informal. We just want to chat. We thought this was a really nice opportunity to share this resource with our workshop community, given that we feel like we've developed a really nice community here, a community that gives us feedback. And this is part of the reason for the workshop today, to hear feedback, to hear your interest or in the site, but understanding that we're looking at this as a site that's still in development, and it's a playground. So we're hoping that we get as much interest and feedback as possible from this group. Doug, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just the good news is we're not planning on running through a half-an-hour presentation with a bunch of slides and tables of results and things like that. Even though it's Joanna and I presenting, this is hopefully a much more informal conversation about this resource, and we get a chance to get feedback from our sort of VIP group, the people who come to this workshop so regularly and in such great numbers. It's wonderful to see we're over 50 people now. So let's get it going.
All right. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, which I rarely do in this workshop. So, all right, so hopefully everybody can see what's on the screen there. So I'm happy again to announce our new website, our data visualization resource, Arts Analytics. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the site is for, why we created it, what we envision it eventually being, and what we're hoping to be able to get out of it in terms of collaborating and partnering with the art sector and people who are interested in using information and using data to understand the art sector even more. This is what you're going to see if you go to the site, which you can do at right now. It's live. We just went live this week, so artsanalytics.org. But it's exactly what you see. You're going to be able to have all of these options for looking at visualizations, which we'll go through today, creating visualizations, seeing data sets that we're constantly uploading. And again, we're going to kind of go through the purpose of all of this, and then reading a little bit about what we're learning from looking at these data sets and thinking about the arts. But this really is an effort to change the culture and help change the culture, because I know a lot of people in the arts are already doing this, of how we use information in the arts and cultural sector to learn. So, Doug, I'm going to always sort of hand it over to you, and you'll hand it over to me if we want to, riff off of one another, if you want to add anything that I'm missing.
I would just go to the next slide. At this point, a lot of people who've got multiple windows open are already surfing over on that other site, which is what we're expecting and fine. But this gives you a little bit of background here. Joanna and I, we love data, we love the arts. And so this is a chance to bring that sort of chocolate and peanut butter together moment and have something at the intersection of data analytics and arts. It's not meant to be a really high-end technical sophisticated thing. It's supposed to be very user-friendly and a wonderful tool for the community out there to be able to use as they see fit. It's going to keep evolving. We'll see how it goes. We can say we built this out of the Center for Cultural Affairs and at the Arts Entrepreneurship and Innovation Lab, also with our other partner at IO Research, with some nice support from the National Endowment for the Arts, long may it live, in helping to be able to support us in all the development work we've been doing behind the scenes on this for well over a year now.
Yeah, and to really stress that this is a dynamic project. This is something that is evolving over time, and we're hoping to really get the partnership and collaboration of the sector to help us build this site even more and add new functionalities, add to the existing functionalities that it currently has. So why did we create arts analytics? So we identified probably 4 reasons, and it's interesting to go back and think about this. This site has been in development for years now. We've been thinking about these particular issues, not only in relation to what we've been doing with the site, but really in relation to what we've been doing in our own research, understanding the arts sector, working with other people who use data. And we identified really kind of 4 issues that we see continually popping up when we work with arts organizations and data. Number 1, that there are a lot of data that are out there that are extremely valuable. Organizations collect data, individuals collect data, but they aren't widely shared or applied. And so I think that last term is really important, the applied, because they may be shared, but often they're just sort of hidden on people's computers, not shared, but they could be extremely useful resources to understanding trends in the sector. Data are often also difficult to locate, access, or interpret. We're going to go through a couple of examples for each one of these problems, but obviously these problems are related. And there are also very big parts of the arts industry that lack transparency. So, we're learning a lot now about how much data are available, but how much data are actually not being shared because of lack of wanting to share the data, because of maybe sort of competitive ideas or approaches, but also just things that perhaps we're a little nervous about sharing. But we have this idea that the more that is shared, the more that we're going to learn about the sector. And then also limited access, and we'll talk a little bit about that, is obviously, we see it as a hindrance to informing policy and guiding decision-making, which is the ultimate reason that we have created this site.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in this in terms of our ambitions and our motivations here. Whether this one website, this platform is going to be able to, solve all of these things will be something we'll learn over time. Which of these gaps are the most fillable and most urgent? But we do see, and maybe you to different extents see similar challenges out in the field with being able to marshal data, make it more accessible and easier to get at. A lot of it's really technical, and we want to bring the barrier to entry down in a lot of ways, and then bring more data to light. And that's the sort of heart and soul behind the artsanalytics.org platform. We start with our first project as an example here. Go to the next slide, and where we talk about work we've done with CRNY, with their Creatives Rebuild New York, and they identified early on that a lot of valuable data aren't widely shared or applied out there, that there's gaps in it. They were looking for a platform. They were looking for someone to help share really valuable data they had. This is an initiative that was going to sunset anyway. And so they needed something that would live well beyond them. But more importantly, they wanted to make sure that there was a platform out there that people in the community could get access to this data and get their own insights and use it how they see fit. And we were proud to be able to step in and help fill that need. And so this is an example, one of our use cases.
Yeah, and we'll go through today some of the use cases that are addressing these problems. We just sort of want to show you a few examples too. I think what Doug, you stressed too, was this idea about there are data that are available, and there are already some really great platforms, but we see this platform is a little bit different because it doesn't require a technical background in order to be able to access the data. So we're really trying to make this, again, a sandbox that is really user-friendly, that even if you can't go in and download, for example, the Portrait of New York State artist data that's available on a different platform, the NADAC platform, then you can come to our site to just play with the data a little bit and see what it says. So another great example, I think, is the NADAC, the National Archive of Data on Arts and Culture, which has been an amazing resource for the sector. This was supported by the National Endowment for the Arts. Actually, I think at the time that I was working at the National Endowment for the Arts, we sort of started working with ICPSR at the University of Michigan to start to launch this. And then Sunil Iyengar and his office really pushed this forward. And now if you go to NADAC, you're going to see tons of different data sets. Here's the CRNY data actually on this, but you can see that for some non-technical users, it's going to be a little bit difficult and complicated to figure out how to use. So what we do is we take this data and we put it into a different format so that you can actually start to use it and look at the data without having to understand any sort of, have any statistical background.
Yeah, the user friendliness of all of this is key. I mean, I look at this. I love NADAC. Got a PhD in NADAC, but I don't want. I'm worried about the rest of the world that doesn't have a graduate degree in data analytics getting a hold of this stuff. The other thing we're not going to be doing is require logins to be able to access the data. There's no paywall. This is all about trying to make this stuff much more accessible. And so, in that sense, it serves as a complement to what NADAC is doing. Not a substitute. It's not an alternative. It's in addition.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this also then gets to this issue of transparency. And so now we've had the opportunity to work on a couple of projects that have really been addressing this issue of transparency in the arts and culture head on. One of the projects that we use as an example here is ReMuseum, which is an organization that is thinking about how to make data much more accessible on the art museum sector. And so this was a report that they let out just early on, I think in the year, that looks at how art museums are using data and sharing data. And what we found, and what you sort of see on the right-hand side here, is that very few art museums actually share very simple data points that could help the public understand how they are best achieving their mission. So this is a project to really try to address that transparency issue head on.
Yeah. And it's not just conceptually that we see that there's a transparency issue. This is directly a way to address it by helping put more data out there. It's not just identifying a challenge or a problem, it's also the solution.
Yeah. And I think these two examples, the Creatives Rebuild New York example and the ReMuseum example, are just good examples of how data can actually fuel policy and decision making. So on the left-hand side here is what you see CRNY released, which is an overview of policy recommendations that came directly from understanding the artists that were in their guaranteed income program, that were in their arts employment program, that were in all the programs that they launched, and collecting data on these individuals and really analyzing how these individuals were responding to the program. And then on the right-hand side, this is the most recent report released by ReMuseum that with the database that we helped them construct, but that was publicly available data, on US art museums, they were able to come up with this idea that basically bigger isn't better, right? And we sort of have heard this through different reports, but this idea that scaling up as a US art museum might not be the best thing to do in terms of serving the public. And so they were able to actually use the data. So we're sort of, again, kind of going in this direction to try to link policy and decision making to the data that we're releasing.
And some of these policy applications don't need to be all that grand and formalized. I'm imagining use cases for our little playground at Arts Analytics where you're on the way to that committee or board meeting, and while you're in the back seat of the cab or the lift giving you a ride there, you're actually on the website pulling up a data visualization, saving as a JPEG, dumping it, tweeting it out, or putting it into a slide deck. You can almost do all of this from your phone. It's not necessarily requiring massive, big research reports that are being empowered by this platform. It could be something as basic as you want a nice visualization for a slideshow.
Yeah. So just giving you a little bit of a tour of the site. Obviously, you can go on it yourself. We wanted to show you what was available on the site. So If you want to learn more about the project, just go to the About Us page. And if you scroll down, you'll learn a little bit more about who supported it. Again, the National Endowment for the Arts Research Lab program was a partial supporter of this, and super thankful to all of the support they've given us over the years. But you can also give us a little bit of information about yourself there. If you wanted to sign up for if you wanted to contact us with any ideas, if you wanted to contact us to donate data, there's all of those links on that page. Right now, this is a work in progress again, but we've wanted to provide a little bit of an example of what we're doing. We have 2 current data sets. So if you go to the data sets function on this page, you're going to see the data sets that are available to be able to play with and visualize. So through our partnership with Arts Midwest, we used publicly available data from the American Community Survey to understand artist occupations in the Midwest. And you'll see if you click on that data source, there are now some products that Arts Midwest has been launching that they've launched from learning through the analysis. But we give you actual access to the data that we used, and you can do a little bit of data visualization yourself. And then we also have the Portrait of New York State Artists survey data up, which again, you can go to all of the CRNY publications, all of the data briefs that we publish with CRNY, but you can also just jump into the site and look at the data yourself if you're interested. And over time, we're hoping that we're going to populate this data sets resource, and we're going to have a lot of these data sets coming from organizations. We'll be curating some of them using publicly available data, really kind of what we think is needed to have a better understanding in the current climate. We'll think about what's sort of the most pressing and urgent needs in terms of data. We'll be adding these continually to the site.
And just to step in on this, as we sort of curate all of this, the curation plan here is really open. This is not, if we take the museum analogy, we're thinking more of an encyclopedic data set compilation rather than something focused on just one thing like artists or something focused on facilities or policy. This is meant to be a really big tent. I'm excited to see what will end up showing up here over time. We'll see how it goes and how it grows, but we're not at all trying to focus this on any one narrow thing. We're actually thinking about this, much like our Center for Cultural Affairs, a really big tent and wide open to see what shows up. And I look forward to having to hire the coders and developers again to have to put in some sort of filtering search functions onto this page because we're gonna have so many data sets to help you navigate your way around.
Yeah, for sure. This is an example of if you actually go to the Create menu option, you can choose one of these 5 basic visualizations. And then what you do is you choose your data set from the last slide that you saw that you want to visualize. And then you start to create really simple visualizations using the drop down and filtering function. So please just go ahead and play with that. I don't think we have a map example up there yet, but that's coming in the next couple of weeks. So you're going to see over the next few weeks us adding a lot of information there.
Yep.
And so this is an exciting piece of the project too, just because this has been in development for so long. This is also a piece of the project that is going to be growing again and expanding over time. So we have a community submitted collection, right, of data visualizations. And so right now we have actually been working with data science students primarily here at Indiana University, and we've been giving them data sets, and they've been on their own sort of coming up with data visualization. So here's one that I wanted to highlight. So this is using the ReMuseum data that we assembled, and then being able to compare museums based on different financial figures. And so you can see these filtering functions on the right-hand side, and you can choose museum A versus B. But this was created by one of our students. One of the major expansions we are going to make to this part of the website is actually to accept many different formats of data visualization. So if you don't work in Observable, but you work in Tableau, we'll start to accept Tableau. If you work in Excel, we'll start to accept Excel, but we're going to try to be really, really open here. But again, this is just sort of our beta version of our site, so we don't have all of the different visualization formats available at this point. But these are, again, donatable so that you can just share your visualizations with the rest of the world.
Yeah, And I think conceptually that's a useful way to think about the site as a whole. If you look at that top menu along the top of the screen there, we got the basics of, about us. We've got the thing with data sets we already showed you where we're going to start, we're collecting our own big data sets. The visualizations and create menu options are basically, you want to go make your own basic visualization using the data, and you want to make your own pie graph or something. Click create, you get to go and create some of these pretty straightforward types of visualizations. This visualizations category, though, are where we've got more community created functionality for different kinds of visualizations we can host here, where there's a lot of really creative possibilities that people can upload and then also share with each other the things that they are able to produce and the tools they're able to share through this platform. So sometimes it's sort of basics, and sometimes it can be a bit more advanced, but also importantly, very shareable.
Yeah. All right. And then finally, we thought, well, since this was a platform we've been working on, why not create some area that we can actually talk about what we're seeing? So you're going to see this word section is essentially like a blog, but Doug and I are going to be posting our thoughts on big issues happening in the arts sector. So you'll see this, one of the posts right now is the 1.2 trillion arts economy, $1.2 trillion arts economy coming from the ACPSA data figures that were released just a few weeks ago. We have a couple of other blog posts on there already, but we're going to be updating those. So if you get on our list, you'll get those to your email, I think every Wednesday morning. But we're also going to be inviting guest contributors here to talk about big issues that we think, again, people who are thinking about these issues would really like to think about. But this is really, again, like information data focused. So a lot of these posts are really thinking about what can we learn from data. So we have one right now on there using the CRNY data to understand immigrant artists in New York and maybe how their experiences differ a little bit.
That's great.
Okay. So what is arts analytics? We're really stressing this playground. It is a messy playground at this point that we're trying to develop, but we're hoping to hear feedback and comments from. So I think Doug, right before we got on this call, said something like a sandbox is really nice and clean when you've raked it and before you go into it. But once the kids get into it, it becomes a complete mess. So that's what we're hoping is going to happen with this site. It's a platform to share and explore data sets, okay? But it's also a tool to create and share your own data visualizations. We're hoping that it'll be growing and that it'll continue to be of a resource that people will be adding to it, that will be collaborating with folks, and that we're hoping primarily that it's going to be a space for insights that spark new ideas. Most important to us, it's going to be free and accessible to the public. So that's of particular importance. You can sign up for a username, but it is free to do. It's just so that you can save your visualizations and go back to them if you'd like. But otherwise, what this is not, it's not a place where it's not NADAC. So it's not, we don't store data and give you a download link for the CSV files or for the spreadsheets with the data in them. There are other sites like NADAC that already do that. We didn't think we needed to recreate the wheel here. This is just to be able to use the data and analyze it in a really user-friendly way, and then also to be able to get some insights from it.
Yeah, if you want the raw data and you want to do your own analyses, artsanalytics.org is really not the tool for you. This is for if you want to do more the finished product, more ease of use, more accessibility on that. And we're going to get to some of the great questions that are already appearing in the chat. And to foreshadow, some of the answer to it is implied here with this is not going to be a subscription model or a membership model or behind a paywall. And that kind of answers some of the questions about what all we're going to be including in terms of data, because we'd like this thing to be vast, but we just have to be mindful of costs because it's free and accessible to the public. It's a big public service as we're imagining it.
Yeah, partly because it's supported by the NEA. So we just wanted to highlight one of our current partners, Alana Horton from Arts Midwest. And so she talks a little bit about what she thinks she's getting from the site and what Arts Midwest has found the site useful for.
Hi there, I'm Alana Horton from Arts Midwest, and I'm thrilled to help introduce Arts Analytics, a new resource developed in partnership with IO Research. Arts Midwest is one of 6 U.S. regional arts organizations. We amplify Midwestern creativity, building community and opportunity across our 9-state region and beyond. Over the last couple months, we've collaborated with IO to unlock insights from large and often unwieldy national data sets, like the American Community Survey, the Arts and Cultural Production Satellite Account, and the IRS Business Master File. Our goal has been to make this data more accessible and meaningful for artists, cultural leaders, funders, and advocates working in the Midwest. A lot of national research overlooks regional nuance. We really wanted to know what's happening in our part of the country. Where are the bright spots? What are the gaps? And how can we help arts leaders and decision makers access the data they need to support their work? Through our partnership, IO has helped us produce a series of research briefs that explore questions just like these, from the types of artistic occupations most common in the Midwest to patterns in income and employment that reflect our unique regional context. And now, thanks to Arts Analytics, that work is available in one easy to navigate site. The platform goes beyond the reports we publish at Arts Midwest and offer interactive tools and visualizations that allow users to explore trends and dig into the data themselves. Ultimately, this is just the beginning. We see this site as the foundation for a larger Arts Midwest research hub, one that ensures our region has a seat at the table in national conversations about the creative economy. There's still far too little data-driven research in the arts, especially in the Midwest. That's why it's been so powerful to work with a partner like IO, who've been thoughtful, rigorous, and collaborative every step along the way. We're excited to keep building on this work, and we hope you'll take some time to explore the data on Arts Analytics that we've uncovered through the Arts Midwest and IO partnership.
So Alana was really nice there. And I think one thing we didn't mention too is that this is a site that is, Doug and I are working on continuously with our partners. And so it's not just, and I think this kind of gets to some of the questions, it's not just you donate the data, we upload it, it's in there, but we're actually going to we work with partners to help figure out what's important to visualize. So where are the trends, where are the highlights we want to make sure that are uploaded. We're not going to just put the American Community Survey all up in there and say, hey, go figure it out. There is obviously a lot of figuring out, but we are also doing the analytical part, working with our partners and collaborators. So if you have data, if you work with organizations that have data and you are interested in sort of using that data and sharing that data and learning more from that data, we really would love to hear from you. So just drop us an email, contact us through the page, anything that you'd like. But this is, again, a joint project between IO, the Center for Cultural Affairs, the Arts Entrepreneurship and Innovation Lab, and we see this as sort of bringing in all of the work we've been doing with all of the amazing partners we've had to date.
Yeah, I want to give a big thanks to Alana also, who couldn't make it to this call, so we used the recording because I think they're on a strategic retreat today or something like that. But it's a good example that partly to answer, I think, Julia's great question about sort of how local might these data get. So we've gone from big national data sets to try to put a Midwestern spin on it for one group. Obviously, there's other regions. We could do something similar there as well. But you go down to a regional level, well, how small of a region, right? And I think part of the answer to that question is about public interest in the data. If it's something that's just interesting to one organization, it's probably not going to be worth all the trouble. But I think we can go very local. A lot of really interesting local data. I mean, the CRNY data for the Portrait of Artists, that's New York State. Now we're getting even smaller than a region. We could still see things that go even more local. It really is a case by case. We don't have a rule. I think it's just about whether there's a great public interest in it and whether we can get the resources to support putting it up, which gets to one of the sort of big questions about the sustainability of this platform in light of current events. And we are very thankful to the National Endowment for supporting the sort of R&D on the backside of this and developing this. But we are intending it to continue on regardless of what happens to the NEA, this morning or next week or beyond. This thing should be able to continue on indefinitely. And that is absolutely the plan, to keep it going and to keep it growing. But it's going to take essentially community support to keep it going. And I think it's probably even more important and more crucial now in this climate where the reliability and survivability of a lot of national federal data sets that we might come to take for granted, we should not be taken for granted anymore. So being able to host some tools like this on a sort of independent platform should be of increasing value, at least in my mind. I'll also say to give a plug for this one slide here about being sort of a data do-gooder and sharing your data with the broader community and us trying to facilitate that. To me, as a data guy who loves analyzing all this stuff, a lot of data are created for a fairly specific purpose, and a lot of data are created for more general, sort of basic research purposes. I find sometimes the more specific data that's not created for research or analysis purposes can find great home and great value to other people who can use your data in creative and unexpected ways. And so I want to facilitate that also with this platform. I think when we create data sets and we keep them in-house because we use them for our one thing, it's really narrow and fine. And it's just a way to justify collecting the data in the first place. But I look forward to seeing the data get recycled and have a second life. And it might be, to get to another one of the questions about sort of juxtaposing some of these data sets across data, this platform might be able to start facilitating that, make it easier for you to look at, artists' data alongside museum data or something like that. We can see some really interesting combinations that weren't the initial intent. And that's where I think the real creativity is going to come from.
Yeah. So here's the site. Definitely go to it. We hope you enjoy it. Keep in touch with us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what else we can do. We're getting already some really, really great advice in the comments. So thank you so much. I mean, I know that there's been the new data continually being created. The recent NEA cancellation of grants, there's a new data set about that. So we could put that up. I mean, we have sort of options here for what to do. So this is great feedback and we'll love to hear it. Again, thank you to the NEA Research Labs program. Couldn't do this without them. So, big shout out to all of the staff there, especially given the current circumstances of what everybody's going through there. So we're just so grateful for everything they've done. And help us spread the word. So if you do this little QR code, you're going to see a fun little social media. If you have social media post that you can just help us spread the word on your social media threads and, introduce Arts Analytics to your friends, everybody who works in the arts, who has data that you think are important to share to learn more. So I think I'd love to just open up the floor because we're getting really awesome questions. And to answer those questions, and I know Doug already commented on a couple, but I think going back to Julia's question, how localized will the data sets be? Again, we have no curation goals with these data sets that we're putting up. We are simply working with partners and collaborators in helping access data that people think are important to understand. So basically just contact us. We will be working with everybody from small arts organizations to huge, large national, international organizations.
And yeah, from Attila's question about the European side of things, or maybe more broadly global, to the extent that White House policy allows us to cross oceans anymore. No, I'm kidding. If there's interest, there's no reason not to. We're very globalized here. We love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other point that Doug, you made too, is they don't need to be standalone data sets. So if you want us to combine, and this is something that, again, we'll work with you on. If you want us to combine your data set with a national or federal level data set that you think is important to sort of juxtapose between, we'll create that data set for you and upload it into the site. So there can be options for how to do these things.
And I want to comment on Valentina's great question about sort of training sessions. We don't have a plan for that, but we probably should work on that. I think it's a good point because it absolutely is my favorite audience for this is going to be someone who's sort of non-technically skilled with all of it. I think we've got a couple ways we can do this. One is we can start putting sort of those words pieces in, right? Put up a tutorial there. We also have this, like the video will show up on YouTube, and we can be putting up some in perpetuity YouTube videos to sort of give those sort of one-sided training sessions. And if there's demand and interest as this grows, we absolutely could put together more real, interactive, real-time training sessions as well. I'd love for that to be something we end up doing, that there's enough demand for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also, I think you mentioned the words posts. The blog posts are going to be highlighting different things that we've done with the site. So, for example, the CRNY words post right now looks at graphs that actually were created through Arts Analytics. So I think those can also offer a little bit of guidance to people who are trying to understand how to use the site. But again, Doug and I are really approachable. So you can also just email us, and we're happy to also just jump on calls with your organization or something like that and help you learn how to use this. I had a professor reach out to me this morning after seeing the site and said this would be really great for her students because they write policy memos at the end of the semester, and she really wants them to be using data in order to be able to support their policy recommendations. And so I'm going to help her learn how to teach her students how to use the site so that they can use data in writing policy. But like, isn't that an amazing thing to already be training our, young generation of graduate students and undergraduates for how to use data to support what they're putting in a policy memo. So I loved getting that request like this morning. I was sort of like, well, actually, Robert Goller asked, and hi, Robert, so nice to see you. Robert was my professor in my master's program, so it's just so nice to see you here. He asked, how will you judge success or failure? I mean, honestly, when I got that first email this morning, I was kind of like, oh, if I get more emails like that, then that's showing me that this has been a useful resource. I'm not sure how we'll judge success or failure. I think it's really, the number of collaborations and partnerships are going to be something that we're looking at for sure, but also, tracking policy and the response to the type of information that we're offering, and understanding how useful this is to organizations and people. So that's going to be thing. Doug and I are new at this thing of creating these kind of I don't know, projects and releasing them to the world. So I think we're going to learn how to judge success and failure.
Yeah, I think it is a great question. And we don't have very strict or formalized or specific sort of target benchmark metrics or indicators, in part because, to be honest, if we're having a conversation about this in 4 years, I think I'm very surprised if I could predict what the site will look like in 4 years. I think it's going to go down a path that I will have a hard time predicting right now. And I don't want to have indicators of success in that sense, because I don't want to steer it necessarily. I want to take the path with the highest sort of marginal product. I want to where its marginal value is biggest and chase that, and whatever direction that ends up taking us within some boundaries, of course. So this could evolve into more of a data combination tool. It could be more about strictly visualizations for social media posting. It could become more about hosting other people's data and letting it have a bigger and longer life. It could prioritize a lot of different things. And I think we want to be open to whatever the community demands the most, and let this be more demand driven than supply driven. What you see now on the website in some ways is not great because it's supply driven. It's driven by Joanna and I and what our initial vision and what that is. But that's like the first draft. I want to see this thing go through it, get a lot of notes, and get a lot of revision and evolution.
Yeah, for sure. Kelsey, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Let me just lower it so I don't forget to do that. I just wanted to start by applauding this group for creating such a highly shareable and easily consumable data visualization tool that allows for non-technical, non-PhD folks like myself to have access to these resources for free. That's amazing. That's huge. So please accept my thanks for that. It's wonderful. Yeah. I'm wondering though, how many or what type of limitations or assumptions were put in place to make this data available and consumable in the way that it is, if at all?
Yeah. Well, so I don't think it depends on sort of what you're doing and what you're looking at on the site, right? So like with the CRNY data, we have a partnership with CRNY where they really wanted to make their data publicly accessible. And we took the entire POA data set and we put it in there. But there are certain ways that our site can handle visualizing the data right now. So I'm sure if you start to look in there, you're going to see limitations on what you can actually do with the data. So maybe there are assumptions that go along with that, but I think it's more so data limitations just based on how the site is built. But again, as we get more knowledgeable about how people want to use the site, we can expand, right? We can address those limitations and expand the use. There will be curated and targeted data sets that when we work with partners and collaborators, that they want a particular data set up there, maybe combined with another set to make a point. And so we are going to be working alongside those organizations, but also at the same time, I think Doug and I are really cognizant of understanding that transparency is key. So that's our first, and that's the priority in our mind, is we're not going to skew the data in some way to make it say something that it doesn't. Absolutely not. Transparency is what we're going for here. But if there's a reason that people want a data set up on the site, we're going to work with those people and say, okay, here's a really good, honest way to show what you're trying to show. So I think that's part of it too. But I like the point that you're getting at, Kelsey, because I don't think there are any unbiased ways to put data up in a site that we created. And so we probably have to be, honest about that.
Yeah, and one of the limitations I noticed right off the bat, which is totally acceptable and understandable, is the lack of sophistication that's available for creating my own visualization compared to those that have been pre-uploaded, like with subsets and multiple data points being able to be selected. It just makes me excited for the future. I'm not complaining, but I'm wondering if that is a planned expansion of usage for the site.
I think it's an intended expansion rather than planned. We don't. But you're right. There's obviously limitations. It's not a fully functional like you would have if you had the data downloaded in your own hand on some sophisticated data analytics tool and software you're running. It's got some pretty simplistic structure to it, so it's really limited that way. But in principle, we could start adding more and more functionality to all kinds of these things, and I would love to be able to do that more and more over time. It's really more of a two parts. Mostly, it's a capacity. Into a technical capacity on the development side, the web development side, and that's just more expense. The other reason to do it is right now it is simpler. It can be daunting when you get into something with too many bells and whistles, too much control, and all of a sudden it's a turnoff. But that's an overcomable concern, I think.
Yes.
But the bigger one is just developing, more functional tools, and we'll see how the demand is.
Yeah, I can
surely.
I could see us trying to get to a happy middle ground here, which is we're not going to be Tableau, right? We don't want to be Tableau because it's hard to work Tableau if you don't know how to work Tableau. But we want to be a little bit more advanced than what we are currently right now. It might be offering more visualizations options. So we only have 5 right now. So maybe putting in some of those, providing more filters, but that's going to be sort of coming down the pike along the way. But yeah, glad to just love this type of feedback. So keep it coming, because we're also jotting down ideas for what we can do. So I would love, I'm getting a couple of questions I wanted to address. Vicky and now Carol talking about the partnership maybe with universities and how we can offer this resource to universities and students and classes. So how are we going to, I think Vicky had the question of how are we going to engage other universities? I think that's that's one of our goals. So I was thinking about, contacting AAAE, so the American Association, so the Association of Arts Administration Educators, and then other international groups that are relevant to think about how their students and, can use this resource. Carol mentioned doing a teaching note for the American Journal of Arts Management. So I think that's also a great direction we can head. But if you also are an instructor, if you teach in any capacity, if you can use this to sort of start training the next generation, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to do webinars or anything that might help that group expand the use of the site.
Yeah, and to Vicky's question, another way to read it is about having universities or other researchers come to us and give us data to house and put up on the platform. Our plan for that really is now we're waiting. We're waiting by the phone. Give us a call. Don't actually call us, email us. But and then we'll work with them to put it up. We don't have a plan necessarily to go to a certain set of people and start begging or pressing them for their data to share it. We're more passive at this point in terms of waiting for them to come to us to share their data.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we didn't really plan a huge long workshop. Again, we wanted to just do an informal type of, hey, thanks for your support over the past few years, especially those who come to the workshop all the time. And help us spread the word. And we're really hoping to hear from people who want to collaborate and partner and give us feedback on how to make this a useful resource. So I'm just gonna one last time kind of, if you have social media, which I'm terrible at, but I love people who do, will promote on my behalf. So you can use this link, this QR code to post about arts analytics, but also just start sharing it with your friends.
Yeah, go to the website, make a visualization yourself or play with it, and then click on grab a link to this, and you can share a link to the visualization you create. It'll automatically create a shareable link right there on the platform for you to share with anybody or post it out on social media or whatever. Or send around our logo and the URL. We love this if you could spread the word. And if do you have anything else, Joanna?
No, that's it.
I want to make sure we plug. I want to check back in with all of you in the fall after you've spent all summer crashing our servers and making it so I have my other benchmark of success where we need to go and fundraise to pay for all the data downloads because the traffic is so high. I hope to have that problem. And we can check back in the fall when this seminar workshop series reconvenes.
Yes.
So we will be back in the fall for another season with a lineup that we will announce as we get much closer to August.
Yeah, for sure. So come and join us next year. We'll have some fun things to talk about, I'm sure. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. And again, for those from the NEA, NEH, all of our agencies that are kind of going through a lot right now, which sort of solidarity with all of you. And thanks for all of your support. Okay. Thanks, everyone.